Battlefield 6 has made me feel something that Call of Duty hasn't made me feel in a very long time. And for lack of a better word, that feeling is simply excitement. And while I knew immediately that Battlefield 6 was going to be a staple military shooter in my collection for a while, I also realized that I probably wouldn't be firing up a Call of Duty title for a while either. What's up, I'm Steve Rochers, and in this video, I'll be talking about the downfall of Call of Duty as a military shooter, how Battlefield 6 delivered the knockout punch to the COD franchise, for me at least, and ultimately why this is probably a good thing for the Call of Duty franchise in the long run. Part 1. Call of Duty's midlife identity crisis. Look, I've been a Call of Duty player for a long time. I'm talking about as early as Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty Finest Hour for the Xbox 360, where I mostly played through the campaign over and over and over and over again. I mean, I was hooked on these games, because unlike other first-person shooters that I played during this time like Halo or Time Splitters, Call of Duty really immersed you in a realistic feeling World War II shooter. And I'm not saying that one is inherently better than the other, but what I am saying is that Call of Duty filled a market need for me that was not previously there before. Fast forward to the release of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and goddamn was the bar raised. You all remember the hype, I'm sure. 50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town. The campaign was very satisfying to play through, and being able to gunplay with modern weapons, attachments, and equipment instead of World War II era weaponry was equally refreshing as it was addicting. And then you add on the iconic multiplayer experience, including a clear progression system, customizable weapons and loadouts, and an unhinged in-game chat lobby. And what you end up with is a genre-defining pioneer of the modern military shooter. But the party didn't stop there, and instead Call of Duty goes on a generational run by cranking out Call of Duty World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, and then Black Ops 2. All of these games crushed across all different dimensions, from cinematic and captivating single-player campaigns to incredible multiplayer gameplay.
I want to teabag him, lad. I want to teabag him like it's Modern Warfare 2. Just squat up and down like I'm on Modern Warfare 2, lad.
All the while embracing the grittiness and realness of war that you want to feel from a military shooter. But then things start to get a little bit wonky. I remember one of my college roommates showing me the gameplay of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and I was slightly repulsed by what I was seeing. Jetpacks, grappling hooks, boosts, dashes, and super jumps. I mean, I'm not naive. The game is titled Advanced Warfare, so of course there would be futuristic equipment and abilities, and it's not like this kind of stuff wasn't in the Halo franchise that I love, but it just didn't do it for me in a Call of Duty game that I associated with gritty and grounded warfare. I didn't pick up Call of Duty again until the release of Call of Duty Warzone during COVID. Although primarily a free-to-play battle royale shooter, I really enjoyed the game as an alternative to Fortnite, which I personally never really got into. The massive maps, deep loadout customization, and simply the hype around the game during COVID lockdown reignited my interest in Call of Duty. But unfortunately, that interest was relatively short-lived, as shameless monetization, corny emotes, and nonsensical character skins further sank its claws into the franchise. Call of Duty devolved into something completely unrecognizable from the serious and sincere military shooter that it once was. Instead, the franchise became a Fortnite wannabe, eager to further cheapen its well-established brand in exchange for short-term revenue by promoting very un-Call of Duty-like franchises like Godzilla vs. King Kong, Beavis and Butthead, Nicki Minaj, and so many more that I don't even really care to list out further. Let's just call it what it is. It's a full-blown identity crisis. And the thing is that Call of Duty has been able to get away with this because there really hasn't been much competition from a popular military shooter in the last few years. That is, until now. Part 2. Battlefield 6 Sticking the Landing. I didn't get a chance to play the Battlefield 6 beta when it became available in August, but everyone seemed to be losing their shit over it, and because of the hype alone, I was pretty stoked to try out Battlefield 6 when it was officially released in October. Before this, my experience with the Battlefield franchise was limited. I played Battlefield 2 Modern Combat a decent amount when it was released in 2005, and I played a little bit of Battlefield 1 in 2016, but I've also played the different iterations of Star Wars Battlefront, which, yes, are basically Battlefield games. Now, I'm only speaking from a multiplayer perspective, but these were all pretty good experiences for me. I really enjoyed how much larger the scales of the battles were, the impacts of the different classes on the game, and using the different types of vehicles that were available. Now, these aspects are distinct to Battlefield and are absent in Call of Duty. However, I always preferred Call of Duty's heavily customizable loadouts and smooth gameplay and gunplay to everything else, which is why I've always been a little bit more of a Call of Duty guy growing up. So when I queued into my first Battlefield 6 game, I was a bit surprised that the gunplay felt much more similar to Call of Duty than I expected, and the level of weapon and loadout customization was just about on par with Call of Duty as well. For me personally, this was great because I didn't really feel like I needed to relearn gameplay mechanics or get used to new quirks or nuances. Everything felt pretty natural to what I was already used to. But that's where the comparison ends, because Battlefield 6's more objective-based gameplay and game design really immerses you in a chaotic combat war zone that Call of Duty doesn't quite accomplish. From a visual perspective alone, the vision-obscuring debris and the destructible walls and buildings result in a very satisfying chaos that adds a real level of excitement that a military shooter should have. Time to kill, or TTK, is a metric that describes how fast players are eliminated while shooting at them, and apparently the TTK for Battlefield 6 is much faster than previous titles. However, the time to kill feels faster to me than Call of Duty, which, according to a very interesting video by Drifter that I'll go ahead and link in the description below, Call of Duty has a moderate TTK, which is apparently the worst of both worlds. Shooters with faster time to kill, like Rainbow Six, are better for more tactics-based gameplay, while shooters with slower time to kill, like Halo, are better suited for more mechanical and skill-based gameplay. So assuming Battlefield 6 has a faster time to kill, then this makes sense given that Battlefield is a game where playing objectives and utilizing your class's abilities are prioritized. And although it's frustrating to get instantly deleted by just turning a corner or getting sniped from half the map away, in my opinion, it adds to the realness and intensity of a military shooter. As of now, Battlefield 6 features no ridiculous cosmetics or cross-marketing promotions for movies or other franchises. Now, I'm not positive how this might change as different seasons progress over time, but if the EA suits were smart, they should appreciate how much positive press Battlefield 6 has received as a back-to-basics, no-bullshit military shooter in comparison to the soulless, sellout brand that Call of Duty has become. And the last thing I want to mention about Battlefield 6 is simply the player community. Look, every game's player community has its own little culture, and this culture is a living, breathing thing that can evolve over time. So we have yet to see how Battlefield's culture will continue to evolve and grow. But in my opinion, the Battlefield community is definitely a positive one, where sure, the players have fun, yet they also take the game somewhat seriously. And I mean that in a good way. Players actually attempt to play the objectives, medics will legit run through a storm of enemy fire to revive you, even if they die themselves shortly after. Engineers have no problem committing an entire respawn to just repairing a tank under heavy fire, and snipers use their recon tools to spot enemies for their teammates. It feels like most players not only know their role, but they genuinely enjoy executing that role to ultimately contribute to the win. It's the ethos of do your damn job, soldier, and it carries throughout the community, and it's maybe one of the biggest aspects that makes this game feel like a real wartime military shooter, and it's something that I look forward to every time I queue this game up. Part 3. Iron sharpens iron. So what happens then with Call of Duty? Is this the end of the story for them? Well, hopefully not, and truthfully, I don't believe that it will be. As a Darwinian natural rule of the universe, competition generally forces the players in this big game of life to either improve or fall into irrelevancy. But typically the players at the top of the totem pole are forced to adapt and improve from pressure from the other players. However, when there's a lack of competition, aka there's only one dominant player in the ecosystem or maybe a monopoly in the market, you'll start to see signs of stagnation and decay. Look no further than the NBA 2K franchise, the UFC, the Roman Empire, or the iPhone, and it's clear that being at the top for too long without meaningful challenges leads to complacency. Call of Duty has more or less held the title of undisputed champion of military shooters for so long that what we've been observing for the past handful of years has been a very natural decay due to complacency and a lack of competition. It's unfortunate, but not surprising in the slightest. However, Call of Duty is an iconic franchise with the amount of mainstream awareness as Halo or Zelda or Mario, and that size and brand recognition and esports presence makes this franchise almost too big to fail. Activision is a multi-billion-dollar business in which Call of Duty makes up a significant portion of their revenue, and Activision is not going to let Call of Duty fizzle and die. So even though it might be too big to fail, it's absolutely not too big to evolve, and assuming that Call of Duty doesn't want to completely give up on its brand as a military shooter, I'm pretty confident that the success of Battlefield 6, and perhaps the potential underperformance of Call of Duty Black Ops 7, might be the straw that breaks the camel's back that forces Activision's hand to really rethink its overall direction. And my sincere hope is that Call of Duty will come back better than ever to compete with EA's Battlefield in the never-ending war for military shooter supremacy. And that's all for today's video, guys. I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd very much appreciate a like on the video or a subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined. But until next time, I'll catch you later.